Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I am super excited to share with you all this fantastic exhibition, Lane Departure, that I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes, and then we'll have all of our fantastic faculty talk about their work as we kind of go through and unveil this beautiful show. Okay, a few things to kind of just get started and announcements and introductions. My name is, again, Michelle Ramin, and I'm the director of Archer Gallery here at Clark College. I'm super, again, excited to just be in this role. This is my second year being here, and kind of our second year going into virtual programming, although I'm really hopeful that we are able to, for our second exhibition of the year, to be installing in the physical gallery space. So that will hopefully be happening in November. That's kind of our goal. So that's what we're working towards. And so look for that and announcements on that through our Instagram, which is Archer Gallery. I think it's just like at Archer Gallery. And then also on our website all the time at archergallery.space, which is also where our Lane Departure faculty exhibition is located right now. Okay. So again, before we get into the show and talks, I wanted to say a few things about Archer Gallery and Clark Art Talks programming. Again, just kind of talking about, full swing into virtual programming for the year, including Archer Gallery, but also the Clark Art Talks. So our first talk of the year is going to be also virtual, and it's going to be Amir Falla, who is a Los Angeles-based figurative painter, and working with just beautiful, figurative, elaborate, colorful, detailed pieces, themes dealing with the body and identity politics, really beautiful work. He's one of my favorite artists ever. So I'm really just grateful to have him speak with us. So that's going to be on October 29th, which is a Friday again at noon. And Zoom links will be posted to, again, our Archer Gallery Instagram, and then also our website. After that, we have Ashwini Bhatt, also virtual on Zoom. And Ashwini is a Southern Indian artist and now living and working in the Bay Area. And she creates these gorgeous abstract ceramics. I'm really excited to bring her in and just kind of hear what she has to say about that work. And that will happen on Wednesday. That one is the only Wednesday event that we have this term. Wednesday, November 3rd at noon. And then the last art talk that we have is on Friday, December 3rd at noon, and that's going to be with Catherine Vetney, and also a Bay Area multimedia artist. So she does drawings and paintings and sculptures, and all of her work is kind of related to gender, art history, and consumerism. So I'm really, really pumped to invite her in to talk as well. Again, all talks will be virtual throughout this term, and we'll see kind of how things go for winter. So look for more updates and information again on our website. And with that, I'd like to say some thank yous. Thank you as always to ASCC, especially Sarah Gruler and Darcy Fighter, along with the student government, for all of your support and funding. We wouldn't be here without you. I also want to say thank you to all of our faculty, especially the faculty that are in the show that have just worked so hard, not just in their classrooms, but also on their art practices throughout the pandemic. It's been hard, I think, on so many levels to be teachers and to kind of pivot constantly, as it is for students as well. And then also kind of keeping to create and keeping making during the pandemic, I think has also been a challenge. So thank you so much for contributing to the show and just making it what it is. I also want to say thank you to Ian Beckett. Ian's here, I think, our on-campus instructional technician, and Shelley Williams, our art program coordinator. Y'all are amazing. Everything that we've, kind of been able to do on campus and off campus, coordinating things has been because of you. So I just wanted to give you a proper shout out. So thank you. And then obviously to our students, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for just being yourselves and doing the work and putting in the work. And hopefully you enjoy the exhibition. We kind of do this for you and to help you learn about, obviously your art professors and art practices, but also more about contemporary art and the art world in general. Okay, so thank you for showing up, especially to my students. I see you all, so thank you for coming. Yeah, with that, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the exhibition before we get into the proper unveiling of the thing. So Lane Departure is a virtual Clark College art faculty biennial exhibition that has asked its exhibitors to depart in some way from their typical art practice. Conceptually thinking about the past 18 months, actually kind of 19 months now, of the pandemic, how much has changed, how much has stayed the same, how much of a departure from pre-pandemic norms the Clark College faculty have experienced, and all faculty and all students at this point across the world, right? Lane Departure provides a unique pedagogical perspective on art making during the pandemic. In the midst of pivoting in our classrooms, many of us also pivoted in our art practices. As artists and art students, we are adept at solving problems and responding to unplanned occurrences. To some, these moments of mishap might be referred to as mistakes or even failures. Artists don't see it this way though. Instead, we often see mistakes as opportunities, moments we can use to think differently, creatively, resourcefully, to build a new perspective, a new world, a new way to communicate or connect with others. Artists do this every time they paint a painting, draw a drawing, sculpt a sculpture, photograph a moment, film a story, or design a logo. Teachers are not unlike artists in this way, responding in real time to students and finding ways to clearly communicate ideas and concepts that are accessible and understandable. Art teachers are peak pivoters. This is my new lingo that I'm starting, right? Art teachers are peak pivoters, knowing how to clearly communicate ideas in words and lectures, as well as in our individual art practices. With this show, I really wanted to have a theme to make it cohesive. With Lane Departure, our title, it came to me while driving through an abandoned desert. It's pretty, there was nobody else on the road, just highway forever, just landscape forever. And just kind of driving, and the alarm went off on my dashboard that said Lane Departure. And I thought, that's it, that is such a great metaphor for everything that we've all been going through. And so that's the title of the show. I wanted us all to really dive into what it means to pivot and to change, as we've all had to do so often during the pandemic. And with that, I give you Lane Departure. So I'm going to share my screen, hopefully fairly seamlessly here. And where did it go? Hold on one second, y'all. Sorry about that. Okay, here we are. Fantastic. Great. Can you all see that okay? Awesome. Yay. Cool. So this is our virtual exhibition. This is kind of the entrance way into it, so to speak. And, during the pandemic, I've really thought about the virtual space and how that can kind of be an actual gallery, right? Do we need the physical space, And so using Archer Gallery, that space, to kind of create this platform, to create a world in and of itself, that can be interesting. We spend so much of our time online, right? So looking at screens, that, why not try to make it a little bit more exciting than kind of just the typical, kind of setup and portfolio of kind of representing and showing off an exhibition. So going to the space, this is what it kind of looks like. And we're just going to enter it here and go in. So, I kind of envisioned it, being, very bright and big and, kind of epic scale to begin with, to get, folks' attention. And you can see all of our work, kind of highlighted at the beginning here. And then you can kind of go through and see, a bit more information here. And then it also, kind of has like a tiling effect down here where you can kind of go through and check out all the art faculty individual, kind of works if you click on them. Okay. And then our exhibiting artists are all listed down here. And if you want to know any more information, you can always go to the press release, which is here. Okay. So with that, this is kind of just like the introduction of the whole thing. I want to kind of go back in and just start kind of going through the show and having folks talk about their work. So I'm going to start with Stephen Hayes, if you're good to go first, Stephen. And I'm just gonna, Yeah, I'm just going to have the faculty talk for 2 to 3 minutes, something like that. If you want to talk a little bit more, that's fine. About your, art practice, anything you want to talk about in particular with this body of work or the theme of lane departure, feel free to do that.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Great
Yeah.
introduction. So I am a painter primarily, and painting, I think about painting as a very physical act, and surfaces and structure of making the paintings, etc., and all that stuff. But a painting also contains imagery frequently as one of its elements. And I was in the middle of putting together a body of work for an exhibition that just opened at Elizabeth Leach Gallery just last week of paintings. And when you pitched the lane departure concept, I kind of knew that I was so deeply involved in the work that I was doing that I couldn't actually make other work for that. But what I could do was see the current work that I was making in a different way. So I had literally just had my paintings photographed for the what all artists do. And when you've got a body of work, you have it recorded so that you have that available as imagery you can use for applying for things or representing yourself for publications or whatever. I'm talking to the students here, people. Since I had those and I have Photoshop in my computer, I decided to look at those images in a new way by simply inverting those images, tweaking the colors that I saw there, pushing values, pushing saturation levels, pushing all kinds of stuff. The structure was already there because I had made those paintings as physical objects, but the new meaning of the new works, which are a reverse simulacrum of the actual paintings, seem to fit seamlessly into your concept of lane departure. It also highlights the notion that the component of a painting that is image is one of those things that we manipulate in many different ways when we're making a painting, but we also manipulate internally. The way one person looks at a painting and gets out of, like, go look at a Van Gogh Starry Night painting, look at that painting. What you take away from it is not going to be what I take away from it. And so these paintings sort of are a way of what this process reveals to you, and what you take away from this is not going to be how I got us there. You know what I mean? So anyway, I think that's enough.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. Awesome. I just love all of the colors in your work. I feel like I'm such a color fiend. And so like when I see your work, like that's just kind of like my eyes kind of pop out of my head. I just feel so connected to your work through the color.
Well, hopefully you get to see the paintings that these are based from. The show will be up through the end of October. And,
Awesome.
if you compare one to the other, I think you'll be shocked.
I saw some images online and they're square format. Yeah. Are all
They're
the paintings
30 by
square?
30. All of them are 30 inches square. All of them are oil on canvas stretched over panel. And
Fantastic.
there's other stuff I could talk about, but I don't want to take up too much time. Other people need to talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like the last time I saw your work, it was so huge and taking up entire walls. So I think in some ways it's a departure just in scale itself, right?
In some ways. Yeah.
In some ways. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Katharina, I think I'm going to have you go next if you feel up to it.
Sure, let's go.
Cool.
Okay, well, I was trying to figure out if people were more interested in hearing about technique or theme. I think, students are often more interested in technique. So I'll try to cover both and do it succinctly so I don't take too much time. But the theme of lane departure, like initially I was really excited about it because this work is from a series that I call Phantasmagoria. And I want to say about 5 maybe years ago, I did a Phantasmagoria series that I exhibited at that year's faculty biennial. Maybe it was 6 years. And it was all about movement and like being on the road. And so when you were saying lane departure, it really brought up that series for me of, these motion blurs. And I would say going back to, I was thinking about this morning, I think it was 1994 was the year that Photoshop 3.0 came out. And that was the version where they first introduced layers. And basically ever since then, about 1994 is the first photo montage I can recall making. And, with Photoshop. But it really coincided so well with my aesthetic for darkroom photography and alternative practices, so like antique methods of photography that I've always been interested in. So I think I do like maybe half of my photography is straight photography, and the other half has always been more experimental. And so I was thinking about phantasmagoria when doing these, and thinking about my previous bodies of work. I would say that I could probably list, many ways to me that this is a lane departure, but I think in many ways this is just an expansion of what I've always done. So anyway, with COVID, I spent a lot of nights not sleeping well. And this is the type of stuff that I literally do at night. And I always have. This is my nighttime thing. And it'll be 2 or 3 in the morning. And I'll be doing these kind of remixes. You can kind of think of them as these remixes. And I don't know why, that's just what I do. Technically, these are all a combination of images that many of them are taken while in motion. I tend to take photographs in the car, mostly when I'm a passenger, but also sometimes when I'm driving. I'm very sorry, but sometimes I do that.
Catalina.
I have figured out some safe ways to do that. But more of them are taken are still, but they, I have developed ways to create these kind of blurring effects, different blending effects in Photoshops, and many, many, many layers that are combined in there. And a lot of them you can't really see, or they're just kind of ghosted. But all of these have many, many layers. And a lot of them are meant to achieve the kind of ghostly effect, but a lot of them are also just for color. So a lot of them I blend certain photographs, and I keep certain photographs in a folder that I call bits, B-I-T-S, bits. And I take all my bits when I'm looking for mixers, right? So I start with a certain image or two that has my communication goals in mind. And then I go to my bits folder to find, the colors and the textures that I'm looking for. And then lastly, I'll just say thematically, beside of lane departure, all of these images are about the last, 18 months during the pandemic, and where I've had multiple personal things going on in my family, a lot of illness. I just put my mom on hospice for her Alzheimer's. My stepdad passed away. My sister, who has MS, has been having problems. My son was having problems adapting to the stress of college, and, trying to do really extremely difficult college classes from his bedroom. And so all of these reference those personal events and my familial relationships, and the titles are meant to give you a sense of what they're about. So Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Katharina.
Yeah.
Amazing. I just think these pieces are so incredible. I think Lisa and I were talking about them, and both of us just really, really loving this body of work. And I don't know if I remember you kind of, maybe this has always been how you've worked, but it felt particularly relevant, I feel like, with COVID, like you were saying, and it, kind of like these piecemeal, and I'm thinking about collages a lot too lately with my own work and just walking through life in general. It's pretty much a collage, right? Everything we see is kind of like, random elements, and they end up forming, a whole. Whether that whole makes sense or not is for us to determine. But yeah, and I think particularly during COVID, it's felt fractured, more so than normal. And so I think that, this work just really kind of hits home in that way. So really gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your like personal like story too. I think that's
Yeah. Thank you.
really,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you're dealing with all those things.
Yeah. This is way more autobiographical work than I typically do. So yeah. So
It's gorgeous.
definitely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. And feel free to add comments in the chat if you want to. I'm just going to kind of go through and keep going here as the semi MC. But yeah, feel free to add comments if anybody wants to chat back and forth in the chat. Go for it. Cool. Jamie, if you're here, I would love to have you speak a little bit. I know that you were kind of like maybe you can and maybe you can't. Jamie Welchley. Jamie's piece is behind me as well. So.
Hi, Michelle. Yes, I
Hi.
am here. I'm sorry.
Awesome.
I am just bringing my kids home from school because it was a half day today. And we are outside, so we don't have internet. I'm not able to see the visual of the show or the chat, but I can participate via audio. So I will talk about my work that way. If you can hear me okay.
Yeah, you're great.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, when I read about your idea for this show, it seemed like the perfect opportunity for me to do something I've always wanted to do, which is to build a pinhole camera and try that type of photography. I built one, but we could not get the film advance mechanism to work. So I gave up on that idea and decided to make a pinhole DSLR, just putting a hole in an old body cap, and took photographs of my everyday surroundings, my kids, their toys, our home and our yard. And the shutter speed for the camera needs to be really slow in this case because there's just that tiny pinhole that only lets in a small sliver of light. So these images are softly blurred from that long shutter speed. You get some motion and some camera shake. It gives the photographs a fading, surreal, kind of a hazy look that I thought it connected with this new way that all of us were seeing the world over the last, couple of years. At the start of this pandemic, we were all kind of shaken by this collective loss of normalcy. And I was shaken by the loss of not being able to give my children what was normal with, going to in-person school. And our lives quarantined together at home kind of felt quiet, but also intense and uncertain and transformational. So, I felt like the particular quality of these photographs reflects all those things that I was experiencing and thinking about. And as for why I was drawn to pinhole photography, I've just always really valued humble materials in my art making. When I was a young undergraduate myself, I started at a 2-year college in Wisconsin that was not unlike what Clark College is. And after completing my associate's degree there, I remember transferring to UW-Madison to get my bachelor's in fine arts. And I actually remember when I registered to take my first photography course, I emailed the instructor asking about the cost of the supplies for the course. And he wrote back something to the effect of, don't even try taking this course unless you're prepared to spend at least $500 on supplies. And that was an extremely painful moment for me. $500 was a lot of money for me at that time. And I ended up just dropping the class because of that. And it kind of made me feel unworthy of photography at that time in my life. So I never did study photography as an undergraduate. It wasn't until I was a grad student when I purchased a used camera from one of my professors. And all that is just to say that humble materials really connect with my identity of being sort of like a simple person. And I'm currently most interested in making work that reflects the ideas of minimalism and simplicity. And I think that kind of comes across in what I made for the show.
Absolutely. I so relate to that, Jamie. Like I had the same issue in undergrad and didn't take photography because I couldn't afford the supplies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, same exact experience. And I took digital finally. And I was really excited about photography, but then they cut the minor. I was going to do a photography minor and they cut the minor and I couldn't afford to do a major in photography because I couldn't afford the materials. So yeah, I feel you 100% on that. But I use photography to this day as references for my paintings and drawings. So so it's still there.
Okay.
But I feel you, and I love the idea of the humble, materials, and I think that's so relevant as well to what's going on, and it has been for all of us in the last, 2 years, trying to, help our students and try to make sure that everybody's able to access, the materials that they need, or to adapt and to, come up with different materials, anything that could work at home, and all of us have really gotten really creative with that. So.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
yeah. And the pandemic has really brought that out for all of us, I think, too, just being scrappy and finding solutions to work with what we have, even if it's not what we're used to having.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I super appreciate it. Awesome. Fantastic work. Um, okay, we're gonna move on to Bobby, I think. Let's see if we can get Bobby's work up here. Bobby, are you here? I think you are.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Hi. There you
Hey,
are.
hey. All right. Well, as I said in my statement that you can read later, I had already planned to take a break from teaching because of things that were happening in my personal life, and in the same way, it's also sort of a break from, I don't know, doing documentary projects about the world out there, which is what I tend to do. And I wanted to spend more time exploring other mediums. Like I've been taking guitar lessons, although I've been playing for 30 years, I'm still a beginner at that. And painting and drawing, which I really like, and I know I'm not that great at. So it's a lot of fun to try to experiment with that. But the other main thing, the primary thing, was to spend more time with my aunt, these are photographs of that we're seeing here. She's my dad's twin sister, and my dad passed away 3 years ago. And since my dad passed, she declined really rapidly. And so I've been making regular, like every 3 month trips to New York to see her. And so I guess what I would say, with trying to keep this short, is that my mom always said to me when I was a kid, to all of us, that if the house were to catch on fire, the first thing that we should save after ourselves is the photo albums. And I have all the photo albums now. My mom and dad have both passed away, and my Aunt Estelle, who you see here, is really the last of that whole generation left. And so for me, photography is really rooted in the real. And there's so much now more exploration of what that means and how you can screw with that and kind of subvert the idea that there's anything real out there anymore. But the idea for me of a photograph as a memory and a marker of life and time, and it's what I've been doing. I mean, I've just gone to see her and just take her picture, not because I think of it as kind of artwork, but just because what I value in photography more than anything is the way that it transports you to another place, to a person, to another time. And I know that, I'll have my memories and I have the present when I'm with her, but I'll also have these photographs to kind of remind myself of what I was doing during this time. So, yeah, I guess there are some paintings here at the end after the photographs, if you flip a little. Yeah, so that was from the photograph of my aunt. And then I keep like a journal that I write in, and on the front of the page, I draw and paint, and then on the back, I write things. They're not necessarily connected. It's just another thing I do a lot of. So if you flip to the next one, there's kind of the finished page of my Aunt Estelle. And then there's, I think, a self-portrait that I have after that in this show. But I've been working on those. Those go a lot slower than a photograph. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that speaks about what I'm doing. It seemed, for me, the whole idea of lane departure, I was already had jumped into another lane. So it was like the perfect theme for getting me to show this work rather than some other series of work that I've already done before.
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah.
It's so personal. And I think it's really important for the students, especially to hear that, and I tell my students that a lot, that like, we should be pulling from ourselves. We should be pulling from our own identities and things that we've gone through. And, kind of trying to express that, and trying to kind of get out what is difficult to maybe say in words or in other forms of communication. And once you get it out there, it like resonates with others too, even though it might not, like, I don't know your Aunt Estelle, but I know you a little bit. And even if I didn't know you a little bit, and knowing that this is your connection to your subject for this body of work, I would feel, and I do feel, very connected to her, in this person, in this relationship that you have. And it's so beautiful. It's just such a lovely thing to feel connected to another generation and to our families and things like that, and those relationships have been really hard to keep up with. It took me 2 years to get back east to see my family, and that was the longest I'd ever gone without seeing like literally anybody from my immediate family. It took 2 years. And that can be really hard, and it's been hard for everyone, during the pandemic. So
Yeah.
I think this body of work really resonates with that.
Well, thank you. And I mean, for me, intention, I think that's one of the things that's really great about going to an artist talk or reading artist statements, if they're, good artist statements, is I want to understand more about what's motivating the artist to create it. Because I'm like, was already mentioned by Stephen, you don't always take away what the artist is trying to put into it. So it's interesting once you look at work and then think about, why was this work created, and kind of fold that into your reaction to the work. So yeah, intention is what I'm really interested in with my students too. Like, what are you trying to say? And then let's figure out how you can go about saying it,
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Barbie. Gorgeous, gorgeous photographs. Lovely.
Can I just add that
Sure.
the love just like hops out of these photographs. It's just exuding how much you love your subject here. It's handled so beautifully.
I agree. Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to meet her. I want to go to New York and be like, Estelle.
I'll be back in December if you want to come.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, great. I think I'm going to have Brian Shannon speak next. Brian, how are you feeling about that?
It's good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great.
Awesome.
Well, welcome. It's great seeing everybody and seeing everybody at the opening. And I see some of the students too. That's great to see you guys at the lane departure opening. I'm a printmaker in my practice, and I have a big studio in the Pearl District of Portland. And I make mainly etchings, but I also like sculpture, and I do installation art too. So during the pandemic and the lockdowns in March of 2020, I started making little watercolors at home on the kitchen table. So I wasn't going back and forth to the studio on a regular basis. And so instead of baking bread or making puzzles, I pulled out the watercolor, and it was very therapeutic. And one of the things that I latched onto was this idea of like seeing all the images of the coronavirus, of the COVID-19 virus on the TV and internet. And then I really started to notice that like the graphic designers, for the different, I'm sure you guys have all noticed this too, for television and internet, they started to kind of use the same image over and over again, or they would like amp up the colors. And I was really fascinated by how amped up all the colors were in these sort of slides. And so as I walked around, I would see in my garden or my yard, or I have a huge collection that I use for still life material for my different drawing and design classes. that I pull out for still lifes and of seed pods and shells and corals and stuff like that. So I brought those home from the studio. And so I had them at home, and I started to look at the colors of the COVID-19 slides and then interpret them abstractly into these drawings. These are 11 by 14 inches in size, these watercolors, and they're on like a Stonehenge kind of heavy white printmaking paper. It's very much like a watercolor paper. And so can you see this here? That's the lotus pod that you can see in a lot of the images. Just these little seed pods that I have in my collection. I don't even know what some of them are.
They're awesome.
You're a botanist, you would probably know what they were. This is the one that looks like bells. I titled the series Disperse, and it's 1 through 8. And I made the very first one in March of 2020. And then I made, I don't know, like maybe 4 more in 2020. And then when your description came out for the show, here's that coral.
Oh yeah.
It
Cool.
kind of looks like bubbles or something like that on the coral. It's really hard. It fit perfectly into what I was doing. You were like, lane departure. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in my lane departure. And I made a few more, and the more recent ones that I made after you suggested the theme were the ones they were inspired from the dogwood tree. Have you guys seen those, like the pinkish red seed pods of the dogwood tree? So you kind of notice some of those when you flip through. There's the coral one there with the greens and the purples. And so with my design class, I have 2 assignments that I totally thought about when I was making this body of work. One is called 25 Views, and I have my design students take an object and then draw it 25 times on one sheet of paper, like rotating it and changing scale. So you very actively are starting to fill up the positive and negative space and think about page placement. And then the other thing was pattern. Of course, we play around with patterns. So these are all sort of in even and odd numbers, and sort of play around with the concept of pattern and compositional arrangement of patterns. And then color, of course, they really start to interact with the color wheel. And then when I would look at these microscopic slides, I would think about the color wheel. So many of them were complementary colors or split complements too. So I was really amping up the sort of split complements and complementary colors with the project. It's all watercolor pencil, which you put on dry, and then you sort of just wet a brush and then move it around. And then you can draw back onto it with color pencil, or you can draw back onto it with the dry, watercolor pencils too. It was very, very therapeutic body of work. It was very calming to make all these.
That's so awesome. I can't tell you how many artists I've been talking to that are also professors or teachers, and how what they're teaching in the classroom has actually informed their practice, their art practice, their studio practice. And specifically design teachers, and me too, kind of thinking about so much about, the color wheel, but the color wheel from like now we're really intimate with it, right? Because we're like in our homes, in our basements, for me, and like kind of like on a camera, making sure everything, that's in this camera space, in this rectangle, is, exactly what we want to show our students. And so I feel so much more connected to these materials now than I did in the classroom, because I have such a smaller kind of classroom to work from, that I feel like it's in my head a lot more so now than it was, I think, pre-pandemic. These are beautiful, Brian.
Yeah, and also how you were saying, like working at home and then thinking about your class more. I'm making a lot more examples, like for the Zoom connections and that. So that was really born out of that too. Or just actively drawing with them, kind of watching you on camera, kind of drawing and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was really fun to kind of reconnect with just a lot of direct drawing.
Absolutely.
And painting.
Fantastic. Gorgeous work. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. I don't know if Colin's here. Colin, were you able to come in? Kind of just started letting people in as we went. No? Okay. Is Grant here? No. Okay. We're going to skip to Damien then. Damien, I think you're here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi.
I had to turn on that mute. Hi.
Hi.
So I only made one image. So that's interesting because I heard, the call and I was like, okay. What have I been making? And most of the things have not been, sorry, I have like fruit flies. It's the season. Um, I haven't been making things as much in my studio because I made a big mural and I made a couple of them. And so that in a way, I'm a project-based artist. Like, I expect something to happen and then I'm going to do it. So like when I have some free time, it might be mostly sketches, trying to get ideas down about work. And then when I have the opportunity, I might make something digitally. So in this case, this is literally a digital image, which I haven't made, I think, a digital image that I was showed and said, this is somehow artwork for a while. But that's what I did for this. So I made one image. So what I usually work with is I make work based off the built environment. I try to interpret structures of our cultural arrangement and architectures that guide us and respond to those in some kind of cultural response, usually based on a site or a place or some kind of feeling that's going to be the focus of the interpretation. So in this case, I made this thing. And I've been thinking about like, okay, so usually I make like large wall stuff right now, but this was made in the computer, which is a huge like scale shift to make something small. But it actually can be printed fairly large if you so wanted to. But the thing is that I've been working like that in a way for a long time. I've been like kind of planning things on paper, then I build things in a computer, and then I apply it to a larger canvas, which might be a wall or something. And so that scale change is like kind of natural. But I felt immediately when you're like, oh yeah, lane departure, like what are you gonna do that's different? Well, obviously I'm not gonna paint a mural and then take a picture of it. I'm gonna maybe make something in this world and then call it done. So it was a good time for me to just experiment with like a little bit of how can I shift my own language? How can I use this time to be experimental and let the actual tools of the computer alter how I could see something. So, I mean, I don't know if I could really sketch this truly, right? I don't know if I could really see this without actualizing it in the computer. Anyway, so I call it desert screens because I took some road trips and wanted to start to incorporate like how does structure invite itself into a negative landscape, or not negative as in bad, just like as a minus space, a place that is a little bit more open and not controlled by human building, stuff like that. So I put I put squares up, I put rectangular forms, which are the most architectural, simplistic forms you can have that immediately communicate perspective, and put those into like a subtle shift of maybe what I would think of as a desert environment, which I've made a couple of these and I'm like just trying to figure out what they are. Like kind of there's a little bit of perceptual shifting going on. And in reality, I try to use the like most kind of simplistic in a way, digital manipulations of taking like an object that's a graphic form, duplicating it, shifting it, looking for the opportunities that happen with that movement and see if something pops out and try to accentuate it. So in the end, I basically have things that are related to my past work, but simplified and then shifted and screwed up, bent, not so precise,
Yeah, I mean, I think that precision is something that I have in common too, where I'm trying to get away from this compulsion to be so precise and clean. And especially, I think during the pandemic, that became very important to me, and really wanting to move away from, at least for me, like highly rendering, figurative, drawings and paintings, and trying to be more expressive and trying to let go a bit. Because I think if, all of us have learned anything during the pandemic, is that, all of us could use to let go a little bit more. I love this piece. I think it's so great. Are you thinking about, maybe this is going to be a project sketch for like a mural at some point?
It feels like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it looks
that's
like that to me
that was
too.
the idea. I took the opportunity to like make a new image, right?
Yeah.
Something that would be applicable in some way in the future, if not just living alone as itself or being a print work. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, it totally looks like a landscape to me, like
Yeah, it is.
driving off into the sunset, kind of with the mountains, kind of back here. And yeah, it's gorgeous.
And a giant sun that's blobbing, you know?
Yeah, taking over everything. I love it. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Damien. Thank you for sharing. It's awesome.
Thanks.
Great. I think I'm actually next in the lineup. And then Lisa and then Ben. Ben, are you here? Did you come in? No? Okay. Lisa, I think I'm going to have you go after me then, if that's cool. All right. I actually didn't prepare anything. I prepared everything for, having to host the show, but I didn't really prepare anything to talk with my work about. But yeah, so at the beginning of the pandemic, I was still kind of working in this body of work that I actually just had a solo show of downtown at Stumptown as part of the Stumptown Artist Fellowship Program. I just took it down literally last night, and it was up for 3 months. And it was a body of work that was super abstract. It was a part of that process of kind of letting go and, kind of trying to get away from highly rendered figurative stuff that I was just talking about. And with, kind of the onset of the last, maybe 6 months, where I'm starting to kind of try to pull things back together and trying to, the abstract work is very expressive, and it's, I was making sometimes 2 or 3 paintings a day, just going very, very quickly, trying to get out a lot of feelings and a lot of ideas. And then kind of going back. So mine is more of a return. So my lane departure is kind of more of a return. And so still trying to pull some of the ideas and thoughts about letting go and being a little bit looser, but also, kind of going back to colored pencil, thinking back also to what Jamie was saying earlier about humble materials. In grad school, I got really, really connected to colored pencil. And it was the material that I could access as a kid, and the material that my grandmother had started working with me to teach me how to draw when I lived with her, and I lived with her until I was 4 years old. So she taught me, everything pretty much I know about the basics of drawing, and we drew together a lot. And mostly it was with colored pencil. And so I have such a fond, kind of, connection to that and relationship to the colored pencil. So I returned to that. My departure was kind of away from that abstraction and into realism again. And with these pieces, I thought, I don't really know what's going on. I can't really figure out what's going on inside of my body or inside of my head conceptually right now, because we're still in the middle of so many things, and there's so many layers that we're all dealing with as part of the pandemic. And so whenever I wasn't quite sure what to do conceptually in my practice, in my art practice, I would always go back to a self-portrait. And I've done, regular self-portraits, and, over the years, professors have in undergrad and grad school have told me, that, if you're ever kind of in a spot, if you're in a jam, do a self-portrait. And you should also always be kind of thinking about and doing self-portraits as you go, just to kind of as a marker of time and where you are in your life. If you're an artist, you should be making self-portraits regularly. So I kind of returned to the self-portrait, but this time, thinking back also to Katharina's work and a few other folks who are kind of collaging things and kind of talking about those themes again, thinking about my screen. And you should see my screen right now with all of the rectangles and all of the squares, and I have 2 screens going. And so, this is our lives, this has been our lives for the last 19 months is kind of looking at these screens, looking at these layers. This is how we've connected to each other. This is how we've, kind of gone through our own experiences. We're still doing it. Like I'm still having this virtual opening reception and art talks, through Zoom. And so, I think it's really a marker of this time. And so you can see multiple, this is essentially like my setup right now. I have like a big monitor in the background with tons of layers. This is me, I decided to kind of cut myself and crop myself. So this is kind of the bottom, middle, I guess, like, third of myself. And then this is a, kind of standard portrait. And then, I have some other things, like I was grilling, some meat in the background here. I was giving art talks at the time in the spring with, this is Richard Tinkler, who's a fantastic New York based artist. So this is a photo of his work, lilacs in the garden. And then, kind of some more stuff kind of going on behind the scenes here. And of course, the phone, everyone's got that kind of sitting there. I love these kind of rocks that I have set up that kind of started almost to warp and abstract into like these apples or organic forms of some sort. And I like that it looked like I was kind of taking bites out of them, even though they are these kind of rocks that I have from various places. And then this is the second, and I plan on kind of continuing this series as I go. Again, colored pencil just takes forever. They're 22 by 30 inches. So they're pretty big colored pencil pieces. They're like, it takes a long time, as a lot of you might know, and many of my students who are in my drawing class know, like the layering of pencil, it can take a long time to build these layers. And so, so each of these, they take a couple weeks, solid of putting this material down. And that's even me being pretty loose with some of the areas. So again, just another self-portrait here. This is my kitty Ozma. That has been kind of my best friend, along with my husband who's here. And kind of like, our world, our world has been in this space and in this house together for the last 19 months. And she's been kind of like my little buddy. And then there's other scenes, kind of getting outside and kind of seeing the world for the first time again with new eyes and a new perspective. And I went to an Airbnb in the spring on the Mackenzie River, and for the first time saw Starlink, that constellation that like the constellation, I think is Elon Musk, like put up in the sky. It was insane. And I thought that we were being attacked. I really had no idea what was going on because I had read about it, but I didn't realize how bright it was. And there were like 57 of them, like the satellites, like in a row, and they were kind of coming towards us, and I was like, it's the end. So I incorporated that, and lots of different things. Again, just collaging things. I've been reading a lot, and I read Clara and the Sun, Ishiguro's like newest book, and that's fantastic, recommended. So yeah, just kind of talking about myself, talking about what I'm listening to, what I'm reading, and just kind of trying to process that through the visuals and the colored pencil. So this is kind of my lane departure. And again, it's kind of a return to some old ways of working, but kind of bringing in some new ideas as well. Okay, so that's me. I'll clap for myself. There we go. Yeah, awesome. Cool. We have Lisa next, and I just saw Ben come in. So we're going to go overtime for some of my students. I said it was going to be about an hour. We're going to go overtime, maybe 15 minutes. So please try to stick around if you can. Okay, so we're going to bring in Lisa.
Hi, I can go quick. Can you play on one of these, Michelle, so that it shows the?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I
don't know if it'll.
I don't see it.
It might not go. Maybe
That's
this one.
okay if it doesn't, but if it does.
I think it's because of my internet connection. Maybe once this.
Oh, no, I thought it. Anyways, I'll just keep talking, and
Okay.
if you can scroll. Oh, there it goes.
There it goes.
And Michelle, I have no idea what you're talking about with Elon Musk made a constellation in the sky. Like,
it's a rotating.
That's a whole separate thing.
That is like
I have
satellites.
no idea. I want to say thanks for putting this all together, and thanks to all the colleagues of mine and the students for showing up. I'm not sure if I followed the lane departure prompt for this show at all. Like a lot of people, I've had just so many things affecting my art practice over the past almost 2 years. I feel like ceramics and specifically teaching ceramics is one of the most difficult subjects to teach online. We are so rooted in the tactile, and I literally have to pick my students' work up to really understand it. So it's been incredibly difficult. And I feel like my own personal work some way is even more so now about just that, about bringing the sense of the tactile forward in this very direct physical presence of the pieces. I think one thing that I've developed over this past time is an even greater appreciation for the natural world. I feel like it's been one of the few, solace points that I've had when it's not 117 degrees outside or, something else going on. It's been a real comfort, and the way we've, just invested into our own little square of it in our backyard. I've had a really hard time kind of maintaining my own steady habitual work practice at home. Like I'm used to maybe, a few hours, a few times a week. But I have during the past year and a half got to participate in a couple of very intense residency experiences. So last year from March to April, I got to spend a month working at the Sitka Center for the Arts on the Oregon coast. Because I was teaching online, it let me more fully immerse in this other experience that I had, where I was completely devoted to my art practice. Also, over the summer, I got to spend another month working in Wyoming at the UCross Foundation for the Arts. So this work that you're seeing here, although not from that time, does kind of show that sort of intensity of experience. These pieces are, gosh, they come from a body of work that took me, over 2 years to develop, with high fire porcelain, kind of a unique method that I call spray casting for making some of the rounded balloon-like shapes that are literally made over balloons, combining this with other hand-built elements, doing multiple glaze firings, and at the same time collaborating with a metal fabricator who made the steel brackets, working with light part manufacturers to get the internal elements all working correctly, to come up with the finished pieces that you see here. So there was a long period of research and trial and error. This other work that was made at these 2 residencies over this past year is going to be exhibited in a solo show I'm having at Lower Columbia College in March of 2022. So it'll just show more of that, kind of those intense experiences I've had, and hopefully moving forward, things will kind of level out and not be either like a total dry season. I haven't worked in the studio for months and months, and this like really intense residency times that I've had. But this work, which was made in the 2 years prior, does it kind of represents that connection to nature, and hopefully the connection we all have to each other. They're meant to really draw the viewer in and kind of elicit these sort of a physical longing, sexual attraction, and just to get more connected and rooted in the tactile existence and that we all share. I think I'll leave it at that.
Amazing. I love it. Your work is so, I feel like it feels figurative to me. And I always go back to the figure, I think, but for me, it feels so figurative, and therefore they feel like portraits in a way, of bodies, of different kinds of bodies. And I think for me, that's how I enter your work and how I connect with it. And it feels so alive. And I love the light too. The light just adds this like other layer of energy that I think, it takes it to a different level. I think it really elevates the work in that way. It's lovely, gorgeous. Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for sharing. Okay, Ben, I think I saw you run in. I think you're my last one. Are you here, Ben Rosenberg?
I'm here.
You're here. You made it.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Had to fix my furnace. Gotta have heat.
It's true.
So I'm sorry to be late. You know, I feel like this whole lane departure kind of fits perfectly for me to be late. Because I thought when you came up with that title, I kept thinking about airports, you know. And I have to tell you, I had a dream about doing this talk today. And my dream took place in an airport. That I
Wow.
was trying to run through an airport to get to this Zoom meeting. So
Here you are. You made it.
so I made it. So I don't know what that means, but I'm sorry I missed everybody. That was great. I'm glad I caught Lisa. Thank you. And thank you, Michelle, for putting this together. And I can't see myself. Am I supposed to? I don't see. Okay. So what do? I just talk about my work? What's going on here?
Yeah, just for like 2 minutes or so. We're a little bit over time. So I'm just
Okay.
going to go through and show slides of
All
the
right,
pieces in the show.
Good afternoon, everyone. This body of work I did over the summer. I just lost my beloved cat, Bunny, that you just saw in the previous pictures. And I just had a show over the summer that just came down last week. And I kind of wanted to do sort of a tribute to my cat, Bunny, and then also I just got all these photographs from an estate sale that this guy in the defense industry had unloaded. And this was last year. And during the pandemic, you know, I would just find these little increments of time to get out of my little space. And I went to this estate sale and I got all those photographs, and I'll talk about that, which show up here and so forth. And then I also, so this is new work, and then the paintings I did this past year, and I kind of wanted to include these also. This is my,
Sorry, I'll go back.
Okay.
There you go.
So this is my, I also created a bunch of collages with my dog that I used to have, a wiener dog named, God, now I've just forgot his name, Muzo. And these are just artifacts that I found kind of digging up in my backyard, and I just kind of combined them with them. You know, the thing about collages is what I love about collages, if I get in a standstill and I need kind of help trying to put together ideas for paintings, sometimes what I do is I put these collages together, and then I create paintings based on this, or I create monotypes based on the collage images. This one, just like that. I think it's called To Die.
Or this one?
What is it?
This one or the one before?
Well, I can't remember. This is Pieta. So this is based on a Vermeer painting. I took a bunch of Vermeer paintings. And then I also, one thing I want to point out about this, my mother was an artist, and I kind of inherited all her little scraps from her studio. So there's little elements that are used in this piece that came from her studio. So that frame is stuff that she did where she would work with fabric and foam core. And then what I put in a little window frame is something from her studio too. So I've been starting to kind of do a homage to my mom by sort of implementing her work, her sort of little scraps into collage work that I do. Anyhow, you can. And then this, yeah, I just got all these weird, strange photos from this guy's, you know, time at the defense industry. And I decided to kind of combine this with this. I can't remember the name of this piece. I think it's To Die For. Do you see the name, Michelle? of the piece?
And I can take it out in here and it'll show us.
Oh,
Strike a pose.
strike a pose.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the other thing. One thing I wanted to kind of say is I can never really come up with titles. And my dad, who spoke Yiddish, he would teach me a little Yiddish, and sometimes I love learning Yiddish and coming up with titles through conversations with him. Now it's my wife who kind of helps me sort of come up with, titles for my work. So some of this is strike a pose. I think I have, this is just bunny. This is a bunny that I bought during COVID, and it's a ceramic bunny, and I just absolutely love it. And so one thing I think it's really interesting with artists and is sometimes you get really infatuated with something and you draw it, you paint it, you just kind of love this item to death. And this is one of those things that I just keep coming back to and doing, little works of. So anyhow, and it's about this big. This is based, this is called The Candidate. And I made this, and then I made a 8-foot by 4-foot monotype based on this image. So it's actually one of the biggest monotypes that I've made for the piece. And what I would do is I would grid it, and then I would use these huge plexi plates and make the piece in sections. So this was made for a show that I had last year at Clackamas, and after 2 weeks it got shut down and nobody could really see it after that. Anyway, so this is, and then this is called The Nanny. And what I've done, what you see on the top of it is I sort of made the collage come off the board, and I would cut foam core on the back of it. And then this was also used as a model for a huge monotype as well. And this, Toot Your Horn. This is based on a Vermeer painting as well. And of course, my wife titled it, this piece.
Nice.
Um,
I think we have to kind of wrap it up, Ben.
Yeah,
But
fine.
yeah, do you have anything else you want to say? Like final thoughts on your work in the show?
What's that? Oh, I just want to say this has been a great show that you put together, and I've had so much fun just going through and showing students, all the faculty that are in the show. And it's a great way to, I've been showing it and I say, hey, you are taking me now, but, check out all these other people who are showing in the show. And yeah, anyhow.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Ben. Awesome. Love the collages. I think somebody had said it in the chat, maybe Bobby, but that they're so playful and fun. And, there's obviously serious topics and you're referencing art history and all these things, but it's also like, you can also enjoy just kind of, zoning out when looking at them and enjoying all of like the play and, kind of a logical scale, proportion changes in the works that are really, I think really fun. So really nice job. But I totally agree. I think that's a good note to kind of end on, is that I feel like it is, something about, kind of bringing us all together, right? Even in a virtual format like this, where we're all kind of in the show together, we're, kind of apart, but together. And that's been something that a lot of people, I think, have been saying, since the beginning of the pandemic, kind of apart, but together. And I think this show really, really shows that, kind of, even though our studio practices are so disparate, amongst all the faculty, we do, have these kind of overlapping themes and ideas that we're working with. And I think the show flows really, really well. So congratulations to everyone, and beautiful show. It's really nice to have this platform here for our students and for the whole community to be able to access all of our work, and to be able to see, especially for the students, what their faculty kind of make outside of the classroom. And I think a lot of our students don't know that we're actually artists, working artists, and a lot of us are showing work as well, professional artists showing work. So you're welcome, Bobby. So yeah, I just wanted to open it up. I know we're over time a little bit, but if anybody has any questions for any of us that are still here, feel free to, shout them out or use the chat, and we'll just have, just a quick Q&A, maybe 5 minutes or something. Any students here, any of my students have any questions or thoughts or comments? I saw some of you, kind of putting them in the chat. Thanks, Jairus. No questions? Aw, lots of great comments. Thank you. Cool. All right. Well, if there are no specific questions, I think I'll leave it there. Does any of the faculty want to say anything final?
I'm just glad I finally made it. So thanks for extending.
Yeah,
the
no
open-
problem. You happen to be at the end of my list anyway, Ben, so the ordering of it, so it worked out. Awesome. Well, thank you all. Thank you, students, for coming. And hopefully you learned some things about your faculty and about art making and our processes. And yeah, always feel free to check out our work on the website, archergallery.space. And, obviously on the clark.edu site as well, there's more information there. And this will be recorded, and it will be up on the website and on YouTube for you all to check out. And if you want to revisit or watch anything, it's all there. There are other faculty members in the show too that couldn't be here today to give talks. So please go check out their work too, and enjoy. So we will see you hopefully at our Clark Art Talk again, which is, I believe, 2 weeks from today. Remember, Amir H. Fala, fantastic figurative painter from LA, will be here at noon on Friday. Different Zoom link, same Zoom time, October 29th. And all of that is going to be, again, on our Instagram and our website. So keep checking back there. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend. And I will see you all on Zoom, maybe in person soon. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Michelle.